Right, so what is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. This week's video. Today I'm going to be taking you through my current arm workout, while also taking you through a few things that you might not be doing, which would improve your arm training and therefore your arm growth if you implement these things into your workout. So without further ado, we're gonna get into it. So my first exercise here, a preacher curl on the machine. And as you're gonna see, I'm gonna take you through all 5 of my sets. And this is because I want you to use a full range of motion, more specifically, over-exaggerate that in your warm-ups. This is because it will subconsciously teach you to get into that lengthened position, the full lengthened position, and that full shortened position, and be comfortable in that position when it comes to your top set where you're going to be lifting the heaviest. And if you haven't got properly short or properly long in those warm-ups, you're not going to be comfortable and you're not going to likely get into those parts of the contraction when you're performing your top set. Therefore, you are limiting your gains at the 2 most important parts: when the arm is fully contracted and short, and when it is fully lengthened, which has been shown to be a big driver of muscle growth. So you want to get long and you want to get short, and if you're not doing this properly in your warm-up sets, you're very unlikely to do so in your top set. And even if you do so in your top set, you're likely to get injured as your muscles are not warm and accustomed to that positioning. Secondly, as you can see, all of my sets look very similar, if not the same, that being rep execution and tempo. So I already told you about getting long and getting short, but keeping the reps continuous. Although you want to get long and stretch out the muscle, and you want to get short and contract the muscle, focus on that squeeze, you don't want to take tension off of the muscle by relaxing it. So although you're going to preach, you want to get the bicep fully lengthened, you don't want to take tension off and relax the bicep. You want to keep the reps continuous and keep constant tension on the muscle. That being said, we're moving on to exercise 2 here, which is a cable curl. I'm using the fat grips as this helps to take tension off of the forearms and place more onto the biceps, which we are trying to grow using this exercise. So if you've got a fat grips or you've got a fat bar like I have here, use that for your curls. But I want to talk to you more about stimulus. To increase the stimulus that is placed upon the bicep alongside using the thicker bar, you want to drop your traps so they're taking out the movement, you're not shrugging the bicep curls. You want to pin your elbows and your shoulders so that the only thing moving is the elbow flexors. So like you can see here, my elbows are pinned and my shoulders are pinned, and the only thing moving is my elbow. And therefore I'm maximizing the amount of stimulus and the amount of tension that I'm putting on the intended muscle, the bicep, and I'm minimizing the contribution of the surrounding muscles. So like the anterior front delt causing shoulder flexion, or the traps shrugging the movement up, all of these things contributing to the amount of tension that is taken away from the biceps. And then like I said before, purposeful contraction, really squeezing. I know this may seem obvious, but if you get lazy and just throw the weight up, you're not fully contracting the bicep, you're not fully squeezing the muscle, and therefore you're not riding it with the maximum amount of stimulus, and you're sabotaging your growth. Leading on to that, I want to talk about intensity, and by this I mean how hard are you working? Are you stopping too early? With a muscle group like the arms, the biceps and the triceps, it is very easy to stop too early. This is because you're going to tire, it's going to burn, but your muscle has not failed yet and you could squeeze out a few more reps, and that slight burn that comes as you're beginning to fail is where you're going to be making the most growth. So if you're stopping as soon as it starts to hurt, you are neglecting the most important part of the training and the reps that are really going to matter in terms of growing muscle. So moving on to my first tricep exercise here, as you can see I've done 2 biceps, now I'm going to do 2 triceps, a bicep, a tricep, a bicep and a tricep, 4 of each. This brings you on to the other portion of contraction. So I've told you about continuous reps, I've told you about the full range of motion, and then on the previous exercise I told you about purposefully squeezing. This time I'm going to stress the importance of being in the lengthened position and not stopping your eccentric too prematurely. It has been shown that a large proportion of muscle growth happens in the eccentric. So if you're rushing your eccentric and you're not getting fully lengthened before you contract, you are not maximizing your training and you are sabotaging the growth that you're going to reap if you get fully lengthened and get fully short. This brings me on to my overall point, which is controlling the changes in direction. I've mentioned getting the muscle fully lengthened. This is where a lot of your growth is going to happen. Don't spend too long there and do not relax the muscle. Keep the reps continuous. So that is 2 points. Point 3, you want to fully contract, purposefully squeezing the muscle and getting that bicep or that tricep completely short. By getting the muscle fully lengthened and getting the muscle fully short and spending a little bit of time in those positions, you're controlling the change in direction and you are minimizing the amount of momentum that is going to be driving the movement, meaning that you are keeping more tension on the muscle and you're stimulating more growth as momentum is one of the biggest killers of growth. And then as you can see here on my top set, when I failed, I grabbed the rope a little bit higher, kept my hands together and pushed out a few more reps. This is a type of mechanical advantage, which is an intensity technique that you can use where, similar to partial reps, in the manner that I cannot get the muscle completely short in the full range of motion. So I've come closer and closed that range of motion and managed to get a few more reps in, accumulate more volume on my top set, pushing past the failure range that I would have got if I stopped before the intensity technique was used. Okay, so we're moving on to more of a compound movement here. This is the only one that I use in this workout, and that is a machine dip. Therefore, it is important that I stress to you here that you should not go too heavy when training your arms. They are only a small muscle group, and therefore if you go too heavy for them to handle, the surrounding muscles are going to take over and be the primary drivers of the movement, such as the dip here. It is very easy to throw on more plates and use my pectorals and my delts, so my chest and my shoulders, to drive that movement down and just blast through, lift heavy weights. But the reason I am doing this movement is to grow my triceps and add some load to my tricep movements. Therefore, you can see that I'm adding more elbow flexion, so I'm not coming back and incorporating my chest and my shoulders as much. I'm pinned in, focusing more on bending my elbows than I am on letting the machine come up. Similarly to training your legs and knee flexion being an important part of quad training, elbow flexion is an important part of tricep training. Therefore, if you're bending your elbow more, you are lengthening the tricep more. Therefore, you're putting more stimulus and more tension on the tricep. If you can keep the tension on that tricep, not going too heavy and letting it shift onto your chest and your shoulders, you will get more growth on your triceps. Therefore, I am keeping the weight lighter, increasing the tempo, so I am spending more time on the eccentric just to make sure that I'm maintaining tension on my triceps and not letting it shift to my chest and my shoulders. Therefore, I'm getting the most out of this movement in terms of tricep growth and an arm workout. So as you can see, so far I've used some drop sets as well as the mechanical advantage. These are intensifiers, intensity techniques that can be used to push past initial failure and accumulate more volume in your training. So I did my top set of dips, I failed. I then dropped some weight and went again and failed again and dropped until I failed on a weight that if I went any lighter, I would not be gaining very much benefit for the amount of fatigue that I'll be building, i.e. is the juice worth the squeeze? If I dropped another 20 kilos off, would I really grow much more muscle for the 20 odd reps that I would get on using a ridiculously light weight? So we're moving on to our third and my final programmed bicep exercise, which is a hammer curl. So I trained usual hammer curls for a while, then I incorporated a standing dumbbell Fisher curl, and now I'm using a preacher bench to perform this exercise. This is because of a similar ideology to why I perform the machine dips in a certain way. I want to remove momentum and remove factors that will allow my surrounding muscles to contribute to the movement. So a regular Fisher curl, I can swing up, use my legs a little bit to drive the movement, and some shoulder flexion to get the bicep into full contraction, which would therefore take tension off of the bicep, which is not what I want to do. I want constant tension and full tension on the bicep at all times when performing this movement. Therefore, I'm using the flat side of the preacher bench, not the side that you perform preacher curls on, but the other side, the one that just drops straight down rather than at an angle, firmly placing my elbow against that to keep my elbow tight. Similarly to how I wanted to keep my elbow tight on the regular cable curls, I'm keeping my elbow tight to the bench and solely flexing the elbow, not letting the shoulder flex, not letting my legs drive the movement up. I am completely tight, fixed in position, and the only thing that is moving is my elbow flexing into full bicep contraction. So this helps to isolate the muscle, and I mentioned the importance of isolating the muscle and not letting the surrounding muscles contribute to the movement. As you can see here, it is a single arm movement that I'm using. Me personally, my arms are pretty well balanced. They're not my biggest muscle group. That is not what I'm saying. They are pretty symmetrical. My left bicep, my left tricep are a similar size to my right bicep and right tricep. However, to avoid any imbalances, you want to incorporate more single arm movements into your training, meaning that if you are weaker on one side than the other, your stronger side is not dominating the movements and reaping the most growth, whereas your weaker side or your less dominant side is not falling behind and letting the stronger side move all of the weight. Therefore, you do single arm movements. You can either start with your stronger arm and make sure to match it with your weaker arm, or you can start with your weaker arm and then match it with your stronger arm. Either way works, as long as you are using the other tips that I've mentioned before to make sure that you're keeping tension on the muscle and you're actually using your weaker side and you're not just throwing reps up just to match your stronger side. Otherwise it defeats the purpose of using single arm exercises altogether. Okay, as we come on to my third tricep exercise, which is a V-bar cable extension, I want to talk about progressive overload. Obviously, you would have heard before, progressive overload is the way to grow muscles. Getting better over time encourages adaptive responses, forcing your muscles to grow. However, progressive overload does not just mean weight, and that is the most important thing to recognize when it comes to arm training. You do not need to be curling 50-kilo dumbbells to have big arms. The people with the biggest arms do not curl 50-kilo dumbbells, I can promise you that. The people with the biggest arms are genetically blessed with big arms, but they also know how to contract the muscle and know how to get the most tension and the most stimulus out of a lighter weight, as they are putting all of that weight onto the intended muscle, and know how to isolate it from the surrounding and the contributing muscles. That being said, you do want to get stronger at movements, as getting stronger will provide muscle growth, but it is not the main driver. It's just one factor of many. Therefore, progressing your training in terms of any of these things that I've mentioned, keeping your reps more continuous than last week, making sure you get in the length and range and spend some time in that length and range, slowing down your eccentric, increasing the tempo of your reps, or getting more reps before you have to use that mechanical advantage on the rope. All these factors are in their own way indicators and factors of progressive overload. Doing something a little bit better than you did previously is the definition of progression. Okay, that is my programmed arm day finished, as I do some hamstrings afterwards as well, but I wanted to increase my volume as I can recover from this, and learning your recovery is an important part of pushing your growth to its maximum and optimizing your training. As you will find out, the arms typically have a faster recovery rate than other muscles. Therefore, as I am able to go to my next arm day and my arms are not tired from the previous session, I can add a bit more into my training, and this is what I have done. I've added an extra bicep and an extra tricep exercise to the end of my workout. You can also do this by increasing the frequency of your training. So if you do not have an arm day and you do not have good arms, and they are something you want to focus on growing, add an arm focused day. Therefore, they are not just the lagging bit at the end of the workout when you're knackered, doing some cable extensions after a massive chest day, or curling some dumbbells when you have fried your CNS deadlifting high amounts of weight. You have a dedicated day where you go into the gym and your prime focus is growing your arms. That being said, I have an arm day, and I've almost always had an arm day, yet my arms are still not my best body part. Therefore, I'll add frequency to my arm training by adding a little bit of tricep volume on the end of the chest workout, like I said before, and add a little bit of bicep volume on the end of my back day. Therefore, I have increased the amount of time that I am spending on my arms, either by adding a day focus to the arms alongside my little volume at the end of my larger muscle group training, or by doing what I did, adding that bit to the end of the training as well as the arms. That being said, the exercises themselves, I had an away facing cable curl and an overhead tricep extension. This brings me on to my final point of the video, which is exercise selection. Choose movements which contract the muscle at different angles and from different weights. For example, a hammer curl and a supinated curl. The hammer curl is going to train a different part of the bicep to the supinated curl. Therefore, if you had an arm workout where you only did supinated curls, you are neglecting a massive part of your arm training. Even more so with your triceps, there are 3 heads rather than the 2. So only doing a regular rope extension, you are going to be missing out on a lot of arm growth because of that. Therefore, as you can see, I used a preacher curl, which had a narrower but still supinated positioning. The cable curls, which was completely supinated, a bit wider, to really focus on that bicep short head. And then the Fisher curls, which had a larger focus on the bicep long head, as well as the brachioradialis and the brachialis muscle leading down from the bicep to the forearm. For the triceps, I had a rope extension for that tricep short head. I've added, at the end of the workout, the overhead extensions, getting into shoulder flexion, which helps to increase the amount of tension placed on the tricep long head. And then I have the closer grip, which will incorporate all 3 heads of the triceps depending on where you put your elbow positioning. Obviously, the dips being a big driver of the tricep long head growth as well. Okay, so that about wraps up everything that I wanted to cover in this arm workout video. I hope you did enjoy this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, share this video to a friend, help them to grow their arms, help to grow my channel as well. Leave a comment down below if there's anything you think that I've missed, there's anything that you have found useful to your arm training that I may not have covered, or even if I have covered it, just mention how important you found it to developing your arms, as learning from others is a big way of improving your training. But that is going to end the video for this week. I hope you did enjoy it. Once again, thank you all for the continued support on the channel, on the videos as of late. We are growing. I very much appreciate that, and I'll catch you next week. I'm out.